What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday show. Today, we like to go through and check out your comments that you have left throughout the past week of Newswave, and we'll also kind of go over some of the bigger pieces of news throughout the week that happened. That way, if you missed any episodes or anything, you can catch up pretty quick here, and then you can, of course, if you want a little more information about anything to talk about here, you can go back and check out those episodes throughout the week. Now, we are going to talk about one piece of news that was pretty interesting. It's kind of off the wall, but, you know, it's pretty fun to see. So we're going to start with that, and that is we have new entries into the Video Game Hall of Fame. And those inductees include Space War, Tomb Raider, John Madden's Football, and Final Fantasy VII. I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there, Final Fantasy VII, that probably like to see this, as well as Tomb Raider. Sure, I'm sure there's some Madden fans out there, and maybe even Space War, but obviously the two big ones are Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy VII. Now, this is relatively new. The Video Game Hall of Fame was formed in 2015, so it's only been a couple of years of this, and even these ones were finalists in different years. Final Fantasy VII, for example, in 2017. So they're not technically brand new nominations, except for Space War. Space War actually got in on its first year, so that's pretty good. But to see Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy VII go in, it makes a lot of sense. If you think back to it, Tomb Raider has sold crazy amounts of copies throughout the years, starting obviously back, what a lot of us remember, probably started playing it back on the PS1, even the PC back then, and then it spanned so many systems now. And then Final Fantasy VII, I think, really brought a whole generation of people into RPGs, specifically Japanese RPGs. That was a big turning point for the PS1 back in the day when it was Sony versus Nintendo. A brand new entity in the console market with Sony, and a very known entity with Nintendo. When Sony offered the CDs, Square jumped ship, and here they come with Final Fantasy VII, and it was massive. Seriously, I bet you there's a lot of you guys out there, maybe if you're a little older, you remember that, maybe even being your first JRPG, and it probably got you into the franchise, at least for a little while. So congratulations to Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy VII definitely, Space War, and then John Madden's Football. On Monday, we talked about an Easter egg minigame in the Labo software that allows users to play with lightsabers, and Sony appears to be on the doorstep of shipping 80 million PS4 systems as they head towards the prized 100 million systems sold. Mark Law says, Labo looks great, but the price is a huge hurdle. I understand this completely. I get what you're saying, Mark. Labo is technically expensive also because of the software that comes with it, and I've kind of thought about that a bit. Of course, you see the $70 variety kit, the $80 robot, and while going through the variety kit, I realized there's actually a lot of stuff to do in it. I just don't think the games are, like, they're not massive. The only one that's really massive, I guess, is the Toy-Con Garage, where you see people programming everything, and then the piano, where everybody's, like, you know, designing their own musical scores and everything, and you can even record music. There's a lot of stuff to that. But for the most part, the fishing game is, it's pretty shallow, no pun intended there, but there's not a lot of content, I guess, outside of the basics. So one thing I thought about was the cardboard is not crazy expensive. You usually can get pretty decent cardboard puzzles and stuff for roughly $20, $30 on Amazon. Those are the ones where you actually build stuff out of cardboard, and they're pretty cool, like puzzle sculptures that come out of it if you follow the steps. If they could do something like that and keep the price down, I could see the Labo software being one software that you download. Yes, you have to download it. It's not a physical cartridge. Maybe they could do it so you can actually get one in stores, but it's a free thing that you download, and it is a constantly updating, almost a games as a service software. Then you can sell the cardboard for cheaper with the instructions that are built into the software that you just download. And it's a constantly updating thing. See, they're going to have to sell different Labo software every time they want to make a new Labo product. Why not have one software that people download, and then you don't have to ship or even really add that into the cardboard, and then you can get it out there cheaper. Labos are currently sitting on store shelves, and I think Mark Law is absolutely correct. I think the price has a lot to do with it. Tuesday, we went over a class action lawsuit in California that seems to be targeting Nyko and their current dock that seems to be bricking Nintendo Switch systems consistently after the 5.0 update. Big D says, question, if the Nyko docks were working before the 5.0 update, how is this a hardware problem? It just seems to me that it was caused by the update. So there were some issues with these docks being bricked, not as many at all as now after that update. That update certainly caused something in the Switch just not like any third-party docks, not even just Nyko's. We're talking like the Insignia dock is apparently bricking stuff, the Fastnail dock is bricking Switch systems, so it's not even just the Nyko dock. The Nyko had some bricking issues prior, but it wasn't a ton. It was some here or there. Now it seems like if you get a Nyko dock and you go put your Switch on it, there's like a 9 out of 10 chance it's going to brick, so much higher there. And it's a weird situation because it's almost like, what if Nyko took their dock and followed USB-C compliance to the T, but Nintendo didn't? Is that really Nyko's fault or is that Nintendo's fault? That's where the gray area is, and it's really like, whose fault actually is it? While Nintendo, of course, tells us, don't use third-party accessories, use our first-party ones, well, they're currently fighting the FTC over that now when it comes to warranty status. So it's, man, this is such a weird thing to see, and I'm actually really curious to see where this class action lawsuit goes, because it could even set a precedent going forward for other hardware companies that make accessories to, I guess, tread carefully and triple check your work to make sure, well, no one's gonna have a broken system after they use your accessory. Code Marla says, why does it matter how powerful the Atari box is? You could run those games on a calculator. So the reason people are mildly obsessive, myself included, about how powerful the system is, it's gonna tell us how much value we get for our money and how far the system can actually go after we leave the Atari games. Because let's face it, you're absolutely right. You don't need much to play or emulate Atari games. Not much at all. It's fairly easy to do. And the fact that they're including 100 of them with the system tells you that the Atari games are not really their main focus. And if they really are relying on selling the system as like their big way to make money, they're just doing it wrong. They should not be released this system at all. Closed off ecosystem, sell games to their marketplace, make money on royalties, rather than let people use Linux, which then they're going to turn around and install Steam, and congratulations, Atari, Valve is actually making more money off your system than you are then. It makes no sense to do it that way, and I hope that's not the case. People want to know about power because they want to know what kind of third-party games they can run. Atari has basically just told us mid to low games, indie games. What does that actually mean? Does that mean like integrated graphics like HD, 3000, HD 4000, something like that? Or are we talking something more along the lines of the AMD APUs? Because those can actually play more than that, I guess. It's weird. Like, we see the new Radeons that are coming out that are built in to the Ryzen chips, right? They're in there like the R7s and the stuff with the new APUs that came out. And they can play some decent games. I would have loved to see them spring for that and make the system a little more expensive, because those games are out there playing like Witcher and stuff. Like if that was the case here with this Atari box and it was $200, they would have a hit on their hands. But the issue is it's an open system. It doesn't come with a controller apparently, and we think it's going to be able to play most indie games, but not all. It's, as you can see, it's kind of all over the place, but we definitely want to know what custom chip is in the system. Wednesday, we took a look at an investigation that has now been started looking into the situation between Gamevice and Nintendo. Gamevice is claiming that Nintendo is infringing on their patent surrounding detachable controllers. If Gamevice is able to succeed with their current cease and desist, Switch units would be temporarily blocked from entering the United States. Falcon says, oh Gamevice, even if you ban the Switch, nobody will buy your stuff. That's not how the market works. So here's what's going on with Gamevice. They don't want the Switch to stop selling because it's not going to affect their product, as you are saying. It's not like all of a sudden the Gamevice detachable controllers for iPhones and stuff are just going to start flying off the shelves because there's no Switches there. What they're trying to do is essentially force Nintendo into giving them a payout, as I think a lot of people can see this. They can see through what Gamevice is trying to do here. They want that payday, because whatever payday or settlement they're going to get from Nintendo is probably multiple, like seriously, whatever they would make multiplied by like 5 or 6. They could be getting a decent payout that would actually give them legitimate money compared to what they're probably making with their detachable controllers, which is a very small amount. That's kind of their end game here, is to end up getting money from Nintendo without technically having to go to court. That's why they ended their previous lawsuit they had, because now they're just trying to goad Nintendo into writing them a check, and then everyone will kind of walk away from there. That's why they're putting this cease and desist out there. They're just trying to pick at Nintendo until Nintendo goes, look, we're just going to pay them off because it's not worth dealing with them. Here's the thing, though, that I don't know if Gamevice has any experience with. Nintendo doesn't really do that. They don't like paying people off. So Gamevice better be ready to actually go to court, or I don't know if they're ever going to get any money out of Nintendo. Thursday, we went over the FTC sending companies notices that their warranty terms are currently illegal and will need to be changed. These companies include all three console providers with Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. Also, the Nintendo Pro Controller is now supported by Steam after an update. It's Vegeta says, jealous of Activision CEOs pay much? Of course I am. Isn't everybody? The Woosp says, so if your product is still under warranty, why would you take it to a third party to get fixed? So I'm going to tell you why some people would come into the store when we were repairing stuff and I was working as a repair person with these systems. There were a lot of people that would come in that were still under warranty, and I would try to explain that to them. Listen, your system stopped reading games, but you can send it in. This was like PS3, think like PS3 and 360 days. We did do a lot of PS4 and Xbox One replacements for lasers, but definitely with the PS3, we did a lot of them along with the 360. So they come in and they say, my system doesn't work anymore. It's not reading games. These are pretty straightforward fixes, by the way. You replace the laser, you're good to go. Blu-ray laser on the PS3, for example. It doesn't work. What do we do to fix it? Well, it's going to be this much. It's going to be like $90 because the laser at the time was like 40 or 50 bucks, and you make money to keep the lights on, okay? And I would tell them, listen, you can send this in. You call Sony. They'll send you a shipping label. You ship it in, and then they'll send it back to you, and you'll probably get it back in a couple weeks. And the number one thing that people did not want to do is wait. That's the biggest thing. They don't want to wait for their system, especially if a new game is out, because that's usually when people figure out that their systems don't work. Maybe they haven't been using it for a while. They get the newest game, like, Destiny comes out. Cool, I'm going to go play this on my PS3. Oh wait, it doesn't read my games now. So now I gotta go out and get it figured out. The new Call of Duty, the new Madden. These are all times where people who don't usually use their system year round find out their system doesn't work, and they're willing to pay money so their system works now, because our laser replacements would be done in a couple hours. So they would get their system back the same day. Sure, they had to pay some money, but to some people who maybe they have a good job or they have enough money coming in and they don't mind doing that, it's not a big deal to them. That's the biggest reason, though. Time is by far the biggest reason why some people don't want to send it away, because they want it back now. Finally, on Friday, we talked about Nintendo's thoughts on keeping the 3DS alive throughout 2019. According to Nintendo CEO Tatsumi Kimishima, the company believes that because of the 3DS price point, it works well as a budget system that the Switch cannot be with its $300 price point. Also, God of War smashed sales expectations, moving 3.1 million units, becoming the fastest selling PlayStation 4 exclusive so far. Ben of the North says, Nintendo can say they'll support the 3DS as long as they want, but whenever Pokemon, Super Smash Bros., and Fire Emblem comes to the Switch, there will be no reason to go back to the 3DS, and I'm not even talking about Octopath Traveler, Crash Trilogy, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Wolfenstein 2, Yoshi, Bayonetta, Metroid Prime 4, the list obviously goes on. So while you listed a bunch of games that would of course pull people from the 3DS audience to the Switch, increasing the Switch sales, obviously, until the Switch becomes cheaper in some way, whether it's through a revision. One of the most popular ways that people think that Nintendo could do that is through a Switch Mini that does not have detachable controllers. The 3DS will probably live on because it has a large library. Nintendo could honestly produce 2 or 3 games a year, and just from the large library now, parents will just buy it. Think about it. Parents buy their kids toys all the time, and there's no games attached to it. It's just they want the action figure or something at Christmas time. The 3DS, the 2DS especially, that $80 2DS has to sell like crazy at Christmas time just because it comes with the game and they can give it to their 5-year-old or 6-year-old that's not ready for that $300 system. So until Nintendo introduces a kid-friendly version of the Switch, by that I mean one that doesn't have detachable controllers that can be lost, or trust me, kids, as a lot of people know, are pretty rough with their system sometimes. If they ever get something like that out, that's anywhere near $80, which isn't going to be for a while, the 2DS will always have a place on like Target's shelves, Walmart shelves, just because those are impulse buys. A lot of people will walk in and say, I kind of want to play that new Pokemon game. Okay, I can get on the 2DS for $80. Yeah, let's do it. $140 or $120 with the game and the 2DS when nothing's on sale. Yeah, let's do that. And that's pretty much why the 2DS will, at least the 2DS, maybe the 2DS XL, will live on for quite a while. Not even from exclusives, just from price. Scythus X says, I don't get why they're worried about the 3DS. If its sales continue to make it, that's just common sense. Money doesn't discriminate from where it comes from. So people in general, gamers, are worried about the 3DS continuing the 3DS line because they don't want resources to be pulled from, say, Switch's games, right? People are worried that Nintendo is diverting some resources to a system that has kind of, it's seen its best days, right? Its best days are definitely behind the 3DS, right? The Pokemon's going to the Switch, other games. People are worried that Luigi's Mansion, for example, should have been on the Switch. People are worried that they put it on the 3DS because they had to give it something, right? Something has to go to it, so they're giving it that. A lot of people figured, well, that should have been a Switch game and not a 3DS game. And yeah, I get what you're saying. That's absolutely a thing. I would have loved to see Luigi's Mansion on the Switch instead, because again, after using the Switch, I have a hard time with that 3DS and that 2DS screen, specifically the 3DS XL screen where they stretch it. It's just, it doesn't work after seeing how crisp the Switch screen looks in comparison. Seriously, that 240p, it's not doing it, right? It's not doing it for me. But it's tough. I get it. People are kind of back and forth on it, but the biggest concern right now is that it's just taking resources. Nintendo could honestly release 1 or 2 games a year, like I said, and it would still sell. And eventually they might get to the point where they're not producing any games and it's all third parties. And that's kind of where I think gamers want to be. It's that happy medium. Third parties like Atlas and stuff can continue to localize or put stuff out, but Nintendo can just focus on the Switch and leave the large install base of the 3DS line to the third parties. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our Saturday Show Newswave Weekend Review. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, guys. Get subscribed, have some fun. It's a good time here on Saturdays, and I like going back through your guys' comments. But if you didn't like the video, hit that dislike button, and guys, leave me comments down below about everything we talked about today, and I will see you later on tonight for Spawncast. That's 9 p.m. Eastern Time.